Hi everyone, it's Victoria here, and welcome to the podcast. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know about the free courses the Victoria Stilwell Academy has available to enroll in right now for dog geeks like you. Just go to vsdogtrainingacademy.com and click the enroll button, and you'll see the free course options. That's vsdogtrainingacademy.com. See you there. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this amazing podcast today. Yes, we've got my fabulous panel, Laura, Ali, Maya, Jamie, Tiffany, Tara, and Lorena. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got a really interesting subject to talk about today. And whilst you are all joining, for those of you who are joining us live, please feel free to communicate with us via the chat. Keep it respectful. You always do, but I just wanted to let you know that. Keep it respectful because we are talking about a topic that might be a bit triggering, but we are not going to go full into this whole study. That's not our job. Our job is to talk about the hope, as we did with the wonderful Andrew Hale, Suzanne Clothier, Amber Batson, Sindor Pengal, Maya Huff-Owen, and all these fabulous people. We talked about the hope of dog training moving forward. And that's what I also want to focus on in this podcast today. So welcome, everybody. It has been a difficult couple of weeks. If you know anything about the dog training industry, you are a dog trainer, then you'll know what's happened. If you're a dog lover and you're coming in here and you're like, no, I have no idea, well, then you are lucky. Kudos to you. And I'm so happy for you because for the last couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, dog trainers have been sort of in this industry imploding for various reasons. And I'm not going to go into too much of it. But what I am going to address is that there was a study coming out, a study came out authored by Anne-Marie Johnson and Clive Wynne, and it's the comparison of the efficacy and welfare of different training methods in stopping chasing behavior in dogs. And part of this study, yes, the study was they used e-collars or shock collars on one group of dogs, and they used food rewards for the other groups of dogs. There were 3 different groups of dogs, 30 dogs used in the study. And what happened was, because of the results of this study showing that actually the e-collar trained dogs were more likely to turn away from the lure if given the cue, which the cue was banana, than the food reward dogs, that the efficacy of e-collars used for chasing behaviors in dogs was actually the e-collars were more effective. Well, then there was an explosion. And there was an explosion for a very good reason. And the very good reason was that this study seemed, even at first glance, to be very biased and deeply flawed. But we're not going to talk about the biases of it, the results of it, or how flawed it was. I have to say that Clive Wynne has spoken at the Dog Behavior Conference before very successfully. He has written an excellent book called Dog is Love, and he has also been on my podcast. But I also, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, he and I have been in discussions about the study since it came out. And I think it's important to talk it through, not just with people who believe what you believe, but for people who actually were involved in the study, as well as hear all viewpoints. And that's what I have been doing, is hearing all viewpoints. So that study is on its own. There is lots of people that have very, very strong ideas about that study. I do too. I think it was exceptionally flawed, and I think it set all dogs up for failure. And I also think that study was that there were some real welfare concerns with the amount of shocks that these dogs received because of the study. But I'm not going to go any further into that. What we want to talk about today is, and I think Maya, as we were talking about this before we got on here today was this whole carrot and sticks. And I'm going to let her say it. She says, I'm fed up with carrots and sticks. We don't want to be carrot trainers. We're not carrot trainers. We're not stick trainers. Let's stop about this carrots and sticks. And I also want to read something before Maya talks from my colleague, Andrew Hale. And he does talk about this whole thing as well, about, come on, everybody, it's time to move on. It is time to stop focusing on this and putting dogs through actually compromised situations when you're doing studies like this, and move on to a more hopeful, more relationship-centered, philosophy when it comes to working with dogs. So Maya, you had a real reaction to this, saying, I'm fed up with carrots and sticks. Can we please stop?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has happened for me as I have grown as a trainer and just as a dog keeper, someone who lives with my animals and lives and helps others live with theirs, is to realize that the least interesting part of my work is the stimulus that comes after the behavior. And I think one of the things that happens when we have a traditional mindset of training, the way that I'm a crossover trainer, I was trained to punish bad behavior and reward good behavior, that we then come into positive training with the idea that the only difference between what we're doing is that we're going to use motivation instead of intimidation. We're going to use carrots instead of sticks. But most of the stuff that I do with my animals does not happen in that position. I'm not actually doing very much work in that consequence position. I'm thinking about, what are the setting events here for you? Why is this meaningful for you? What skills are you missing such that this is the best option for you? How might I set it up and come to a compromise so that you can tell me sooner what you need, or I could tell you sooner what I need? So those kinds of larger questions, different questions, they're not solved with sticks, but they're also not solved with carrots. So sometimes I think we narrow this debate down so far that we miss the really interesting and deep and complex work that goes into teaching and that goes into living with another species.
I think you're right, Myron. I think what this study showed is that it was very rudimentary when it came to working with the food reward. It was almost like bad entry level stuff, which didn't set dogs up for success at all. But also at the same time, this idea of positive training just using that carrot is something that I think people still have that mindset that it is all about training, and that training is just that. And we know at Positive that actually positively, this teaching and living with dogs, it's a lifestyle. Positively is a lifestyle with dogs. It's how you want to live with your dog and how you want your dog to live with you. It's not just about motivators or aversives at all. It's relationship. And for some people who, well, look, I train a sport dog or I train a working dog and I don't care about relationship because I need this dog to be obedient to me. Well, I think those people are kind of lost to what positive training is, which is, it's not just about, I'm going to give my dog a treat. I'm going to give my dog a toy. Or if my dog sits, I'm going to open the door. Yes, that's a part of it, but it's actually quite a small part of it. Because what we're talking about is an understanding of dogs and a lifestyle with dogs. What about that, Ali?
I actually have a human example about that. And I was a fairly competitive lacrosse player through college. And I think about the two types of coaches that I had, one of which was my school coach, and the other one was my travel team coach. And my school coach, she thought about our lives off of the field And she thought about how to prepare us physically and mentally for competing. And so she would do team building things. She would prepare us, she would have us do meditations. She would have us do things the night before games, preparing ourselves. And she just thought so outside of quote unquote the box that she didn't think about what we were doing in practice exactly. I mean, she obviously thought about that, but it wasn't just that for her. Whereas my travel team coach was very heavy handed, and everything he thought about came inside practice of what we were going to do in practice. And there was a lot of punishment. There was a lot of running extra laps and things. And I will say that he lost to my school team every year. Sorry, bringing up some old stuff back there, anybody who listening from Team Texas, but it's true. And I don't think she needed to think about, nobody needed to look at the two of them and say, well, this guy used punishment and this gal used rewards. It wasn't about that. It was really about the antecedent arrangement of what happened in the beginning, that she never even needed to use any of those things because nobody thought twice about, bad mouthing her or not doing what she asked us to do. She made it so easy to be successful in her program that she didn't need to use any of those things. So that's kind of what I was thinking with our dogs. That's what Positively is all about, that we really talk about the whole dog and this well-being or welfare of the dog. We put the well-being almost before we even have to worry about welfare because it's wrapped in.
I really like that analogy. I think it's a great analogy. And if you are going to be, I'd like to use another one. If when I was an actor and you had a great director, the great director was not only concerned about what you did on the stage and directing you on the stage, the great director was also concerned about what you did off the stage, because they knew that if you really understood the role, as well as you really had a lifestyle that was supported your mental health and your physical health in order to do the role properly, that actually you were going to do a better job in the actual role. It wasn't just about what you did on the stage. It was about everything you did to get to that point where you can be successful on that stage. And so that, whether you're doing sports or you're doing theater or anything, I think that is something that if you can just think of those analogies, that's what Positively is doing for dogs. That's what our courses are all about. That's what we teach our students at VSA, is that, sure, we're going to be doing life skills. We've got our students that are going to come very shortly for their in-person track, and they're going to work with myself and other faculty for 6 days. We're really excited for our VSA students to come here to work with us. But if they're thinking that they're going to come and do all of this wonderful, we're going to teach a dog how to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it might be something very different to what you actually think about, because we might be doing some of that, but this whole idea of training is just one small portion of actually working with a dog. Lorena.
It is amazing that we're talking about the sports analogy, and I'm sure, yes, the theater, acting coaches, basically any coaches. And I got to call out Marion Holmes, who said that there's so much that's similar with the training of humans, both children and adults. And it is so absolutely spot on. Right now, we're living in our personal lives. We are living a situation where the main point of the coaching really does seem to be the end result of how many points are on the scoreboard. And I have seen what that does to a group of kids, a group of teenagers, young men. It can outright kill the passion for what they're doing. I understand, the need that, yes, you do want to be successful. Absolutely. That's a big deal in anything that we do. But when we're only focusing on the outcome, I think that it's so, so easy to fall into the trap of by any means possible, or, the ends justify the means. And I really, really think that I think the way that our society has been gearing towards, for decades now, people are forgetting that. And they're forgetting the unintended fallout of just focusing on that outcome. It's so much more than that. I went to a college game this past weekend, and I was really observing how the coaches were going, and this team was doing fantastic. Anyway, they were, I was looking at the coaches when they made a mistake. Yes, I saw the coaches put them in. I saw them talking to them, but every interaction was respectful. It could have been passionate. I could see that, but I could also see that the players were not, withdrawing into themselves. And then I could see that at the end, they were absolutely, they were either tapping them on the helmet, giving them a good squeeze on the shoulder. It was a true mentorship. It was a true relationship. And you could see that, really. You could see the results of that in, you get better results. Honestly, you do. So
thank you, Lorena. That's yeah. I mean, you're living that right now. You're seeing the results right now. You're seeing that with these two different types of coaching techniques, how these children, they're young adults, but they're still young, are responding to that. And, we're talking about how easy it is for teachers to break student spirits. We see it in the college place with where my daughter's at university. We see it how these different teachers break these kids' spirits by not including them, by a harsh word, by favoritism, by not turning up, and so our kids have to really, you could say, or they have to toughen up. There's a lot that these kids are dealing with right now. So if you're one of those people that says, well, your kid has to toughen up, well, I'm telling you, they're toughening them up every single day because they're exposed to so much right now, so much negativity, as well as good stuff, but so much negativity. There is a really interesting comment that I just saw, and thank you so much for sharing that. The comment is, these are great analogies, but people don't have a prey drive. I would never use a shock or prong. I wonder how much of this is believing their dogs have a right to be off the leads in circumstances where it's not actually appropriate. I really like this, but I would say that I think we do have quite a prey drive. I think humans are quite prey driven in many different areas, but somebody that is more, understands that a bit more could talk about that. But I would say that we have huge drives. People are hugely driven. We are driven to eat. We are driven to procreate. Many people are driven to be as successful as they can in a certain job. There are some people that aren't, but we have drives. We do. There are lots of people who like to go out there and hunt and find their prey and kill their prey. There's people that eat prey every day, so we are quite prey driven. We're also chase driven. We play a lot of games. We like a lot of chase games. We play football and soccer and netball, because I'm British, but basketball and all of these things, right? So we humans love chasing too. But your question, your bit about should these dogs be off the leads in circumstances where it's not appropriate? There's this huge argument in the UK, especially in the rural areas of the UK, where there is a lot of livestock. And in general, that's one of the things that shock collar trainers use out there, is that they training their dogs through shock not to chase livestock, which you can argue is a really important thing to do for dogs not to chase livestock. But then there's that other, why are we setting the dog up for failure? Because, shock collars don't work all the time, do they? And they do work some of the time, but they don't work all the time. And why don't you just put your dog on a lead when you're walking past the livestock? So I get it. I understand that. And yes, you should be. You shouldn't just be advocating for the livestock, or you shouldn't just be advocating for your dog so your dog's not shot by the farmer, because that can happen if your dog chases. But you need to be advocating for your dog and for yourself and for other people around you. And if that means you have to put your dog on the leash, even on a long line, going past a field of livestock, well, do it. It's not a big deal. So I think that's a really good point that you bring up. And yes, if anybody wants to take that, please do. I would really appreciate it. Or I'm going to pick on somebody. Maya, I'm going to pick on you. Don't we all have drive?
Yeah, well,
in a different way, maybe.
It's a funny word, drive, because the only way we know whether an animal has a drive or not is by what they do, right? And then we ascribe to them something inside of them that's being expressed by what they do, but we can only see what they do. We don't see drive. And I do think, though, that you hit a really interesting point. And it goes back, I think, to what I was thinking of right at the beginning, which is, in general, I'm not putting my learners into situations where they're learning things that are harmful to them or harmful to others. And whether it's appropriate for this particular dog at this point in his journey, in this environment, to be off lead is a question that I would ask that is about safety, not just safety for the animals around him or even his safety at this moment, but what does he learn here if he makes a mistake? How safe will he be next time he's here? And I mean, in both for the animals and people around him and for himself. And those are kinds of questions that I think guide what kinds of planned learning opportunities I might create for an animal for whom I'm responsible, like a dog for whom I'm ultimately responsible. And it does really raise the question of why we would set them up to fail or to learn something that might make them less safe. So
sorry, carry on, Maya.
No, I don't know if that's where you were going with it, but I was thinking about Leslie's comment, and that there are many, many times where I think, and I include myself in this group, where somebody will come to me for help, and I'll say, yeah, I think maybe we threw this dog in the deep end, and she didn't really have the skills to learn what she needed to learn here to be safer and happier in her life. And so we need to rein it in a bit. And I've made those mistakes too, where I've put animals in kind of over their heads skills wise too.
And I think, Maya, you really bring up a good point. Going back to the study, these dogs weren't put in a place where they could be successful. They weren't given the chance. And I think that's what's so devastating about it. They were not given the chance. And so you can do a protocol, but they only had a few days. And when you're talking about dogs because the dogs that were chosen because of their chase-proning behavior, they were prone to chase things, that they weren't set up for success. So how can you have a conclusion when really the study has been so poorly executed? There's a question on here. Do we risk anthropomorphism blindness by using human type comparisons? I think that's a really good question. And if anybody wants to answer it, please do. But I definitely do sometimes think that we do. Here's, and this might be going off on a tangent, but I remember another dog training show, or another dog trainer, I would say, that was interviewed by quite a well-known talk show host. And this talk show host really viewed their dogs, Cocker Spaniels, as children. This talk show host doesn't have kids, and so these dogs were her children. And on the show, she was basically told that actually she shouldn't think about her dogs as children because they weren't her children, they were her dogs. And I think she was quite upset about that. And I think it upset quite a lot of people, because there's a lot of people who, whether they have kids or they don't have kids, still see their dogs as their kids. I call myself my Chihuahua's mother. And my husband is Jasmine's father. And that we call ourselves mom and dad, mommy and daddy. That's what we are. But by doing that, are we anthropomorphizing our dogs too much, which again sets up expectations that are way too much for them or that are way out of sync? Or is anthropomorphizing dogs a good thing because it actually can foster a bit more empathy towards these amazing animals that we have in our homes? Because if we do treat them more like children, then we shouldn't be using shock collars on them. We shouldn't be using devices that cause pain, because if you do that to a child, you're going to end up in jail. Am I right? Or what is the happy medium here when it comes to anthropomorphizing, Ali?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a happy medium. I used to be in the camp of like, we shouldn't do this at all, and we should look at only observable, measurable things. But I would say that it definitely does help. And yes, while dogs are not people, I think it does help us put ourselves in their shoes. And I think it does that the same with everyone else. If you do that for other people, that it can, I feel like it can mostly help you. I would say every once in a while, if you try and empathize with every person you ever meet, like it's possible that you have no idea what it's like to be them, and to constantly make it, and not that empathizing makes it about you, but that there may be something that we just want to let it be and just observe and let this being, this organism, show us what they need in that situation. But I would think that these analogies do help. They especially help clients, especially if someone really doesn't seem to get it. Although, Vic, I would say that I might use a caveat there, because some people would use them on their children. So we do want to be mindful of when we're talking about that as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, somebody in the chat has come up with something that when we talk about naughty dogs, we talk about naughty children. That's sort of anthropomorphism too. But so it does work both ways, doesn't it? But when people are calling their dogs naughty, or are we doing the dogs disservice, Lorena, when we talk about that? A quick break here to get a word from this episode's sponsor, the Victoria Stilwell Academy. Now, did you know that I have a school that teaches people to be dog trainers? I love It's Me or the Dog and my work as a dog trainer on television, but those of you who know me know that my true passion really lies with helping other people live their best lives with dogs. And I love seeing that truly magical transformation when that light bulb goes off with someone I'm helping with their dog. That's what it's all about. It's the secret sauce that pet professionals like me, who work with these amazing animals, that's what we all share. It's what makes being a dog trainer the most rewarding, enriching job I can imagine. It's why I love what I do. And it's also why I founded the Victoria Stilwell Academy, so that I could provide a roadmap to others who want to help dogs and the people who love them learn to do what they love doing at the highest level. That is, to become professional dog trainers. Earning a living working with dogs professionally has been a dream of mine for years. And that passion is what drives all of us at VSA to create courses that are specially designed to help adult human learners chase their dreams. Now, most people already know about our flagship dog trainer course, which provides both online only and in-person options. But did you know that we also offer both dog guardians and future professionals a fully refundable 10-hour online course taught by me and other awesome VSA faculty, and it's called the Fundamentals of Dog Training and Behavior course. Now, I know it's not the sexiest name, but it's one of the most dynamic learning experiences available to dog geeks, and it's a pretty awesome first step to see if learning with VSA is right for you. Now, as a Positively Podcast listener, you can use promo code PODCAST right now to get the Fundamentals course for 50% off. That is $150 value. So, take our course. Plus, we also have a couple of free starter courses. They're free, completely free, including a course called Building Your Dog's Confidence, which reveals the secret ingredient to a happy dog life. So, I encourage you to check out VSA today. As I said, we have courses for all levels of learners. So it doesn't matter whether you're a newbie with your first puppy or a grizzled vet already making a living as a pet professional. Visit positively.com/VSA to learn more and enroll in a free course. That is positively.com/VSA. We all want the best for our dogs, whether that means you taking home some key tips for your own dogs or adding the ultimate in professional dog trainer education. Visit positively.com/VSA today. VSA, it is the future of dog training. And now, back to the podcast.
I think so. I think that it is a very, very important thing to try to balance the right way. And I think that it is important, like it was actually mentioned, and thank you so much for that, that it's easy also for us to expect more of what we so far have been able to tell that they're capable of doing psychologically. Things like, for example, peeing on the rug because they're going to get back at you for leaving them, for example, those kind of thoughts. That's a pretty big leap, which interestingly seems to be a very, very common thing for people to not have an issue doing. But on the same track, though, when it comes to, being motivated, feeling safe, having, the hierarchy of needs met, all of that has been studied. It's important for us to be able to empathize with them and to see the world a little bit more from their point of view. And that's where the empathy comes in. I believe that it's very, very important. I think for a lot of people, especially people that aren't, neck deep into dog behavior, like many of us here are, for them, it's really important to be able to have it kind of like a human comparison, a human, metaphor for things, for them to be able to say, okay, this is something that I really need to think about that I hadn't even considered from my dog's point of view. And that's part of one of what I try to do with the people that I coach, the dog owners that I coach, is to help them understand that and to see that a little bit more from the dog's point of view. And yeah, anthropomorphism can get out of hand. I think that as long as we remember that we're dealing with another species who does have very similar brain, a similar brain to ours, but it's also different. And we need to, it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. So there's I love all these comments. And as I'm listening to Lorena speak and listening to all you speak, I'm also reading all these comments, and it's really good. But Maya, what you think about this whole anthropomorphization?
Yeah. So I thank you, Ellie, for putting in the definition in the chat. And I think the connection between anthropomorphization and empathy is an interesting one, but I think I might see it going the other way. So oftentimes I think we can only empathize. That's a lot of things, but we can only empathize with people who are like us or who share our experiences, or beings that are like us or who share our experiences. And that sameness, looking for sameness before empathy, does, I think, harm our ability to empathize with others who have experiences that are distinctly not like us. And it may also kill what may be for me, the most important part of empathy, which is curiosity about what is different for you. Mm-hmm. So if I look and I say, you're just like a child, or you're just like I am, or whether it's actually to a child or to a dog, I may be missing the really important parts about being curious about the parts of this being's experience, which are not mine. And so to me, empathy, anthropomorphization, or just seeing sameness where difference exists may kill important parts of empathy. And we may start to think like, oh, well, I already know how you feel because that's how I would feel in that situation, right? Yeah. So that's for me the first part. The second part, though, is I think we often have this idea of what a human is, that where humans stand over here and all non-human animals are over here. And so we may think of something as a human trait that is really a trait of being a living being, like feeling pain, for instance. And maybe not every living being feels pain, but I would say the vast majority, we have good evidence that the vast majority do. So is ascribing pain to a dog anthropomorphization? Most of us would say no. And I think we could probably go through some other traits that we've traditionally thought of as only human and say, no, that's properly ascribed to other non-human animals with good evidence. So I think it can get confused that way too.
There was a comment that actually in the chat that made me giggle. And the comment was, yeah, but we also anthropomorphize everything. Computers, cars, all sorts of objects. Oh my gosh, I do that so much. My car is called Red because the seats are red and she's a she. And every car I've had, even if it's hired cars, they all get a name. They all have, and also my GPS, she's called Henrietta. Sometimes she gets mad with me because I go the wrong way and she has to correct me. And I'm like, Henrietta, could you shut up? Because I know what I'm doing. So it's like, maybe that's slightly different, but we really do it. It just made me giggle because I'm sure that there's other people like me that do that out there. I'm sure. All right. Well, this is great. And thank you so much for everybody for giving your insight as well as for people commenting in the chat. What do you see as the sort of the hope for dog training in the future? Let's say that we're like, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line. What do you see as a success? What do you hope for in this world? That's a really hard question. Tiffany.
One of my favorite things about the rescues that I do work with right now is that they have come to appreciate how beneficial it is to the dog's feeling of safety when nobody is scaring or hurting the dog. And so they're noticing that dogs are warming up faster. They're feeling less stressed. Obviously, it's still going to be a rescue situation unless they're in a home. But even in a shelter, they're seeing a lot fewer signs of stress because everybody that they meet is wonderful and every experience that they have is wonderful. And they're seeing really good results with that.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Tiffany. That is absolutely spot on. Ali, you wanted to say something about it.
I was thinking of the industry at large, and the short answer is I'm not sure, but the larger answer is I think collaboration, and I think more collaboration between colleagues and more collaboration perhaps with organizations. Whether I don't know if it's legislation, I don't know if it's the local government, or I also don't know if it's universities, thinking of universities partnering with different organizations to standardize some education and researchers. So I want to say that I support our researchers, and I support those that are trying to bring clarity to the dog world and are being curious, as Maya would say, and exploring these things. So I would say more collaboration, and that's going to take enhanced communication. So I think we're communicating now. I don't know how successfully it is in the dog training world, but I think more connection, collaboration, and communication.
Tara, you have well, actually, Dilly, I don't know how old now, but a puppy now going into adolescence, I would think. And you're at the start of your journey with your dog. How important is it that you raise her right and you raise her to be a confident dog, even with all of the challenges that you face, because she is a terrier. So good luck on that one. But you're at the beginning of your journey with her. What do you hope for her and for the future for dogs like her?
So I think that the one big thing that with her I've really focused on is teaching her skills so that she can go into our world with me and we can be partners. And what I really love to see is the industry shifting from behaviors that we teach to control our dogs, the sits, the downs, the stands, all of that, to behaviors that they need to be successful in our world. Obviously, there's times when they're going to need those skills, but naturally they do them anyway, and we can capture that. But the reality is the things that I need is for her to be able to find things, and preferably human-driven things, and not the things that she's currently working on as a 7-month adolescent working line Jack Russell Terrier. So if we can go that route, I need, like, yes, the leash is there, but it's a communication tool. I want her to understand that I will respect where she wants to go, and I want her to respect where I want to go. And we have that kind of two-way communication. And yes, it is an emergency tool as well, but I want her to understand that if I use it in an emergency, something great will happen on the other end. So getting the U-turn in, getting the let's go cue in, those are all so important to me versus, just a loose leash walk. She can pull if she needs to sometimes right now. She needs to take me to the grasshopper. Like, it's so important. So these are the things that I need to understand. And sometimes that grasshopper is much more important than where I need to be heading in the moment. And I can give her that. And so, like I said, for the industry, what I would be looking towards is what's cooperative in the relationship rather than how can I control you in the relationship.
So, Tara, let me just ask you as well then, if she does something that is unsafe or that you don't like, or how do you address it? Because that's what a lot of people say with regards to positive training. How do you tell a dog no or stop? Do you use aversives? I mean, so how do you address that when she putting that in air quotes too, challenges
So one of the very first things that I tried to teach her was what her name meant. Her name meant stop and focus on me. That's all I need you to do. Turn, look at me. So it's if you will, we sometimes call it a positive interrupter out there. And that's basically, I use her name because that's easy for me. It's what I'm going to remember to do in the moment. I know a lot of people like to just do a sound or something. So I try to just stop whatever's going on and then redirect her to something else. And sometimes I can't do that. So sometimes it's on me to just go and get her, if you will. Because like I said, sometimes I don't know what's on the other end of that smell. Because we are on 15 acres and she is earning the right to have some freedom. And in that freedom, we have arranged it such that if I know that I need you to be at a specific time in 15 minutes, you don't get that freedom yet because your recall is not 100%. If she sees a buck, she's gone. There's no way around that. So a lot of it is setting those situations up for success. If I know that I need her, we're going to do a leash walk. If I don't, I'm going to give you the freedom and I'm going to trust that the phi collar will lead me to you if I need to get to you. So a lot of that, it's a lot of the management, but the main thing for me is redirect and let her know it's never going to be a bad thing. When I come to get you, we're going to go do something fun immediately.
Right.
Even if you were doing something I didn't necessarily want.
I love that, Tara. Thank you so much. Now, Jamie and Laura, you are the newer trainers on here, and Jamie, I want to ask you. You're relatively, I mean, not very, but relatively new in this industry, and what is your sort of perception of it, and where do you hope it goes for you? Because I'm sure your journey in this industry is going to be longer than what I've got.
One of the biggest obstacles, I think, is, of course, all of the misinformation that's out there, and figuring out a way to bring that up to people without making them feel attacked. I cannot count how many clients I have had who have been given information that is harmful to the relationship that they have with their dog. And when we can go in there and maybe not anthropomorphizing, but we can help them empathize with their dog by giving them examples that make sense to them. Even now, I'm working with a wonderful woman who has shared with me how much her world has opened up since she started thinking about, instead of what I need my dog to do, she's starting to think about how is he feeling right now. And that's really powerful. I think as somebody who is relatively new to this is being able to bring that connection to people. So my big goal is to keep that going, is helping people understand their dogs rather than feeling like they're in conflict with them.
And you are a student of VSA and also work with us here at Positively in VSA. And I have to say that that's just so wonderful to hear you speak like that, and for you to say that message, because there's a lot of new people that are listening here too, and they need to hear that message. And I think that is a message of hope. As much as the old dogs like me are like mired, sort of, because we've had so long in fighting the fight and having, new people who come in who haven't had that experience of having to like be down in the real kind of dirt, mud, scrapyard of all of this. Not that you don't see it, because you do, but it's because you have this, you are doing the job of a trainer, and you are going out there and affecting people's lives and dogs' lives in a really positive way. Laura, similar way, you're in the UK, whereas I think UK is a bit further along in thinking about dogs and dog welfare and well-being more than the US. But what do you see?
Well, with my line of work, obviously, I also do group walks, so I am responsible for a lot of dogs at a time, and I find that trust is such a big thing between you and the dog when it comes to training, when it comes to especially letting them off lead in fields, etc. And yeah, just listening to the dog, I think, is the best way to get training done, because they're all so different. Every individual learns differently. Some learn slower than others. Some stay on the long line a lot longer than others before they can go out into the world. And yeah, I personally, in my part of the UK, I haven't seen many shock collars, which is a great thing. It's not something I see a lot. I'm out every day. I meet people all the time when I'm out, and thankfully I haven't seen a shock collar in my area of the world. And I'm hoping that in the future that will be a lot more kind of prevalent throughout the whole world. As you say, there are kinder ways to do things that are a lot more dog focused.
Yeah, I really love that, Laura. And you're right. When you're over in the UK, it's almost, when I go over there, it's like a holiday vacation, because there just aren't. I think since I've been used, there's one prong collar I saw, maybe more choke collars, not a shock collar in sight. And we're talking about in the cities and in the rural areas, and there's just not. And of course, we know that in England, we're moving towards a shock collar ban, as we have it in Wales, and hopefully Scotland, Northern Ireland will follow suit, and other areas of Europe that do have shock collar bans in place. Plus, I think it always shocks people this: the Metropolitan Police do not use prongs or shock collars to train dogs. And in fact, shock collars were banned in the Met quite a few years ago. And if any police dog handler is found to be using a shock collar, they don't just lose their job as a handler, they lose their job as a law enforcement officer. That's it. So, and that's Metropolitan Police is not, and they're based in the London metropolitan area. But when you have the West Midlands Police or Essex Police or Gloucestershire and Somerset Police, a similar thing. And so, and these are the dogs that are having to do very difficult jobs, yet they're not using shock for that. And I have to also pivot to the rescue world as well. Jamie, I know you do a lot of work in rescue, and I know that most of the trainers on here have supported rescue in one way or another. But when you're in rescue, people every day are saving dogs' lives. And the myth out there that you can only really do it with shock, and that people every day, whether they're actually physically training or not, are saving dogs' lives and not resorting to aversives. Wow, what you just said there, that's the key. Even in that environment where dogs have been abandoned for one reason or another, sometimes no fault of a person, sometimes they have just been left or abandoned and found on the side of the street, or people have been rehomed and can't take the dogs with them. I mean, we know that dogs end up in shelters for all kinds of reasons. Yeah, and historically, shelters are the place of just, oh my God, let's just get them out of there. I know we don't want dogs languishing in shelters, but while they are there, if you can make their experiences as positive and as wonderful as possible, then you've got dogs that are going to be easier to rehome and more successful in the homes that they are adopted to. And I love that what you say, Jamie, is just that these dogs are having such fabulous experiences around everybody who interacts with them, that they're like, okay, this isn't so bad. And there is a future for these dogs, regardless of the type of behaviors they're showing. So, that gives me it makes me very happy, but I have hope for, if that can be done in the rescue world, if it can be done with working dogs, then it can be done with any dogs. And how powerful is that? Lorena, what is your hope for their future?
I'm going to echo what a lot of people have been saying. And I was just responding to Ashley Osborne as well. Thank you, Ashley, for that. Where, she's opening up a new business, and she wants to see that this is more community driven, that this is more collaborative. Thank you, Ali. Yes. It does take a village, and I can definitely see, we're lucky enough in our local network that happen to be Tara and Tiffany are also part of it as well locally. And we can definitely attest to the power of being able to collaborate and not just be out for I want all the clients. I want them all. I want everything. I want to become the new billionaire in the dog training industry. This is not a field where, gaining the most money is the name of the game. If you're in it for that, I respectfully beg you to please exit, because this is not the place for it. And I'm really, really hoping that we can extend more and more of these collaborations, of mentorship, of asking each other. I'm at a loss. I happen to be hitting a wall with this. I wanted to bounce it off your, off of colleagues that understand. And in many cases, sometimes it's even with our own dogs. And quite honestly, when it happens with our own dogs, there is such a thing as being too close to the subject. And sometimes we do need each other to be able to help keep us, accountable, to help keep us, make sure that we're not going down a route that isn't going to be helpful or, God forbid, even harmful. I really think that so much can be done when we collaborate.
I agree with you, Lorena, and that's why we have the Victoria Stilwell Positively Dog Trainers, VSPDTs, because that is a group of amazing dog trainers, doesn't matter which country they're in. And there is great collaboration and a Facebook page where people can go on and say in an environment where you're not going to be judged. And you can say, hey, I need help with this. Or do you have the latest study in this? Or where it is a collaboration from people that don't live close to each other. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And they live in other parts of the world. And that's it. And I would also say for our VSA graduates, they still have they have the graduates page where they can talk to each other and also get support from each other. But I also want to give a shout out to the UK and what is being done in the UK. I want to give a shout out to the UK Dog Behavior and Training Charter. Because there's no legislation, none of the trainers are licensed, right, in the UK. Some of the top schools came together. Now, who would have thought that these top schools that are always in competition with each other would actually start to collaborate? But it was because of the idea of Andrew Hale and people like him that brought these schools all together to collaborate and form the UK Dog Behavior and Training Charter. And what our mission is working together to help the nation's dogs and their people. And there are 10 founding members, including VSPDT, including VSA and Positively VSPDT. And at its heart, I'm going to read this mission. It's a new future for dogs, their guardians, and professionals. At its heart, the UK Dog Behavior and Training Charter is a code of conduct, ethics, and methodology. More than that, however, the Charter is a collaboration of many of the UK's leading behavior and training membership organizations who, for the first time, have come together cooperatively under the Charter umbrella to work in unison for the benefit of dogs, dog owners and guardians, and the wider profession. In an unregulated industry, dog owners can often struggle to find a suitably accredited professional to help them and their dog. While there are many excellent professionals working nationwide, there are also many who continue to use outdated and aversive methods without any oversight or accountability. And let me just tell you who these organizations, the founding members were. Animal Centered Education, APDT UK, CABT, ICB, IMDT, Association of Interdogs, National Institute for Canine Ethics, Pet Professional Guild, VSPDT, and Victoria Stilwell Academy. These are the founding members, but we have people that are coming as supportive members as well. And as the membership grows and we do this amazing collaboration, here is a site that you can go to, as well as the Positively site, I should say, if you want to find a good trainer in your area. But here's a place that you can go to that you know that the members in this area, their membership has to follow a code of ethics. And we are collaborating. This is powerful stuff. This is what I see the future of training in as well, as where we don't need to focus so much on what the other side is doing, because actually welfare and well-being is the most important things for dogs. And it's not a conversation anymore because it is just understood that welfare shouldn't be a talking point, that people who are focused on welfare and well-being shouldn't be laughed out of the room or called soft or other names, that it shouldn't even be a question that we're putting welfare and well-being of dogs and the people who love them first and foremost in our minds. It shouldn't even be a question. And so that's why I love the Charter. We're doing it in the UK. We need to do it in the US. So that definitely has been a talk amongst a lot of the organizations of collaboration too. So that's exciting. But that's how I see it as well. Maya, if you can sort of take us out of this conversation, because I want your thoughts of what you see for a kinder world for our dogs.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about the distinction between freedom from fear, pain, need, and freedom for or freedom to. Thinking back to Dilly getting more and more freedom to explore the land that's around her as she's safer doing it. And what I'd like to see, and this is a little bit insider baseball, but in terms of our industry, but what I'd like to see is that we move beyond conversations about relief and safety to conversations about widening animals' worlds and abilities to control that world. I think we've made a good step forward when we started thinking about the dog's experience and protecting them. But I think that won't tell us what to teach. That only tells us what to take away. And if we don't have a plan for if I don't have a plan for how what I'm planning to teach or train or do or change in an animal's environment, how that is ultimately going to give them access to more control, more of what they want, a bigger, richer, larger life, then I think I only have half the plan. So where I'd like to see things go in the future is much more conversation about that kind of constructional skill building, not just for what would be good for me, but what will I be able to teach? It's my responsibility, I think, to teach dependent animals how to navigate their world safely. And what will I teach such that after they learn it, they have a bigger, richer, wider world? That's what I'd like us to do.
Thank you, Maya. And thank you to everybody who's commented. You just make me laugh with some of the comments that are coming up right now. Kent says, I like code of ethics. Dogs of the round table. That's what it should be. Knights of the round table. No. Let's have dogs of the round table, because they could sit around there and they could talk about how they could make us humans better. We are trying. Many of us are trying. And, I do feel like it's a real honor to be a dog trainer. I feel it's a real honor to be able to work in this industry, to be around people like you all, to have the support of people like you, and to make me a better person, me a better trainer, and that hopefully that we can do that for other people as well, but also that we are here as a resource positively for dog lovers all over the world. And that at VSA, we're a resource as well for people who want to become trainers, as Jamie can attest. Like, this is a really important part of learning. Now you've got these great establishments great training schools that you can go and learn to be a dog trainer in. I mean, how lucky are we in this day and age? And because I've been in this racket for 25 plus years, and since It's Me or the Dog started 20 years ago, there definitely has been a massive move forward. We do have these occasional blips now and again. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, wow, what progress we have made. And I'm so excited that we can continue to make even more and more progress, so that studies, like we talked about in the beginning, we don't need them because these devices are not around. They're not even available to train dogs. And that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this podcast, is that there is such hope. And that I hope that you guys are listening, and for those to be listening live and for commenting, thank you. And for those that you are listening to this podcast, wherever you are, walking the dog, driving the car, sipping your coffee, that you feel energized by this, because I certainly do. And you know what? It does take a village. It's not just going to be by yourself, doing anything by yourself. Sometimes you need it, but also, gosh, isn't it better when you have that village around you to help and support you? And when you have those like-minded individuals, and also people that will challenge you, that might not agree with everything you say. As long as there is a philosophy of kindness always at the foundation, we're going to take this training world into a much better direction and keep on moving it forward. And that's what's so exciting. And that's what I hope for the future. So thank you so much. If somebody's like, I feel energized. Woo! So do I. I do. And I really do think that we when we are talking about things that pull us down and make us feel grotty. I love that word. It's such a great English word, but it's grotty. We don't want to feel grotty anymore. We don't want our dogs to feel grotty. So let's move into this new way where welfare is just the first thing that everybody thinks about before they even put their hands on a dog. Thanks everybody on my panel today. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you on another podcast. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively podcast. For Victoria's online dog training courses, more information, and helpful dog training tips, visit Victoria's official website at positively.com. Get connected on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media as Victoria Stilwell, and follow her on Twitter at Victoria S. Learn to become a professional dog trainer with the Victoria Stilwell Academy at vsdogtrainingacademy.com. And be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps you and your dog live your best life together, positively.